Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Crafting and Crime Daily. Today is my pop-up live stream. I promised you the opening statements in the Vallow Daybell trial. Is this the swan song? Is this the last we're going to hear of Vallow Daybell, this trial? Oh, God, I hope so. I am just looking for a certain button here. I'll find it. Court actually started already, probably about 20 minutes ago, but they're on a 30-minute time delay. So we've actually got a few minutes before that feed goes live. So there's some stuff that I do want to show you from what happened yesterday. The last time we spoke, Lori was ill and could not make court. That was on Monday. The judge said you need to come back on Wednesday. He did have to order her to be there. So, all right, found the right button. Okay, let's go back there. Hey, Sue, welcome. So yeah, he did have to order her there to be there yesterday. So here's how this played out. I'm gonna thank you to Nate Eaton with East Idaho News. If you're watching back on the replay, don't forget to, if you wouldn't mind, hit that thumbs up and consider subscribing. I do recap live trials. You know, I know you guys have a lot of choices out there of who to watch during these live trials, but appreciate you guys keeping me company while I watch the live trial. Oh gosh, there's a new feature on StreamYard where you guys can see the comments on the screen. How cool is that? So I'm just trying that out. It's in beta, and we're going to give that a try. Okay, so I wanted to show you what happened yesterday. Here's Lori entering the courtroom. This is kind of interesting, and as soon as they go live, we'll go right to that. So here she is. Where is it? Let me find it. Where'd it go? Okay, I lost it. Where did it go? Hold on, it's here. Okay. Oh, for heaven's sakes. All right. This is yesterday, and you'll hear Nate Eaton's voice because this is from his feed.
Walking into the courtroom. No wheelchair today. She walks in holding her files. She seems to be a little kind of hunched over, not her jovial. Normally she's walking in pretty quickly. Turns around, looks to see who's in there. Let me play that for you one more time. That is the room where she is with that deputy the whole time. So she walks in. She is wearing the rack belt underneath her clothes. She has worn that outfit before. There's her paralegal, Anna, in red, and then her other attorneys were there too. So
the judge actually entered an order on Monday. I want to show you this order. I'm going to keep that up on the screen. So this is the order that he entered on Monday. He said it would be beneficial to the parties in the court to have some objective measures of the extent of the defendant's illness. The court requests MCSO direct qualified medical personnel to assess the defendant within the next 24 hours. The court is not requiring MCSO to divulge any HIPAA-protected information. However, Ms. Daybell may be required to produce some form of objective information if she is seeking any continuance beyond Wednesday, June 4th, 2025. So he issued this order right after court on Monday. Sorry. Where'd my drink go? Oh, no, I made a drink. I got to go get it. I have a tickle in my throat. Okay, that's better. So she comes to court, and let me show you how that goes down when they finally go on the record yesterday. And that is, let me find it for you. Here we go.
All right, we're going on the record, State of Arizona versus Lori Daybell, CR 2022-001242. Can I have appearances, please?
Trina Kay on behalf of the state and for the record, the victim is present in the courtroom.
All right.
Daybell for the defense.
All right, I'm going to need you to scoot up to that microphone. We also have present in the courtroom a representative from the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. Do you want to announce?
Yes, Your Honor. Joseph V. Hill on behalf of the Sheriff's Office and Correctional Health Services.
All right, after court on Monday, immediately after court, I ordered the Sheriff's Office to provide some sort of medical assessment of the defendant. I received a pleading late yesterday afternoon indicating that Correctional Health Services examined the defendant around 12:30 p.m. yesterday. The defendant was treated for one condition, and Correctional Health Services has indicated that from a medical standpoint, we do not find any clinical indications to miss court. Is that correct, Mr. Vigil?
Yes, Your Honor, and we have additional information if you need it, but it's not much. But
all right. All right, let me turn to the defendant.
This is probably going to be a HIPAA violation coming up.
Your Honor, first of all, can all of this be sealed? Anything that having to do with my medical? I don't think that's something that all of this needs to be sealed, including the minute entry and
Hold on.
the response from MCSO, all these things.
I can seal the response from MCSO, yeah, but to the extent, well, do you have any other information you want to provide me as to why you're not medically able to proceed? Right now, the only objective information I have is that you were assessed and CHS sees no clinical indications of why you need to miss court.
They told me
If it's
that
something you want to discuss on sidebar, we can do that.
that would be great.
All right, I'll ask. Intends on proceeding with jury selection today. Depending on how things go, I don't know that I would make the parties do their opening statements or not, but that remains to be seen today. The court finds that the court has not been provided any objective medical information of why the defendant can't proceed today. Although the defendant expressed that she has a headache and is not able to proceed, she was able to fully advocate on her own behalf and articulate to me the reasons why she doesn't think she can proceed and seems to be of sound mind and ability to proceed. So we're going to bring the jury in. How many jurors do we have? We're still missing 6.
So this goes on. Let me go. Okay. So this continues. They continue with jury selection yesterday. Hi, everybody. They did seat a jury, 6 men, 6 women. Actually, it's 8 men, 8 women, because there's some alternates there. In any case, so we're waiting for today to start. Let's see if we can get that screen going here. So because it is 12:30 now. There's a 30-minute time delay. They should have started 30 minutes ago. Let's doesn't look like there's anything going on yet. So we will we'll set that up for when it does go. When it does start. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to just remove that for now. I don't know why I have this on a New Year's. Let's change that because that's just kind of silly. Why is it on New Year's? What should we put? Should we have the, here we go. That's much better there. And we can make me bigger. How about that, you guys? I did it. So there is a new feature on StreamYard. If you can look down in the right corner, you guys can see your comments on the screen. How cool is that? Because I get a lot of complaints on the replays that people can't see the comments, especially like last night during my Craft With Me Wednesday when everybody's having this discussion about books. And if you're watching back on the replay, you have no idea what any of that was because I wasn't part of the discussion. But it was fun nonetheless. Yeah, isn't it cool? So it's 10:30 a.m. In Arizona. They were supposed to start at 10 a.m. early today. I guess they usually don't start at 10 a.m., but they were supposed to start at 10 a.m. There's the earrings that I got from Richard last night. You can barely see them. Oh my gosh, they're so pretty. They're pink and purple. So I called him. You guys were so involved last night in this book discussion. Richard was there. He's part of the discussion. He's in the chat. Meanwhile, I'm unboxing the earrings. I'm talking about the earrings. I'm trying them on. I get a message from Richard after the live saying, when are you going to unbox the earrings? I'm like, you were in the chat. But they were so involved in this discussion they were having about the books that he wasn't even watching that I unboxed his earrings. That was pretty funny. Anyway, he's forgiven. But he's doing a drawing today. He just hit 3,000 subscribers, and he's doing a drawing for a beautiful necklace. He makes the most gorgeous jewelry. So I'm in the drawing for the necklace. Yeah. He asked this question. It was so ridiculously hard and you had to email him the answer. And I called him up. I'm like, I'm doing research because it was about Ariel, the Little Mermaid. I'm doing internet research on the Little Mermaid. Like, how ridiculous is this? And I still can't find the answer. Like, I know the whole lineage of the Little Mermaid now. Trying to find the answer to this silly question. I finally found it, but I hope I got the right answer. He says, I had 131 emails and only 9 people got it right. I'm like, well, I hope I was one of them. Anyway, how y'all doing this morning? We're waiting. They're not here. I'll show you there's nothing going on here. See, there we are. Yep. And that's Nate Eaton's feed. If you don't watch East Idaho News, he's not a lawyer. He's a reporter, but he's so good. He's so personable. He's just very relatable. He's not, you can see that he's not doing it like it's his job. He's doing it for East Idaho. He works for East Idaho News. He's a news director, but you can see that he just enjoys what he's doing, and he's not doing it for fame or fortune. He's just, trying to keep people informed. And I really like that. He's not trying to analyze anything or he just tells you straight straight up what happened. Oh my goodness. One of these allergies going away. I'm going to mute you guys for a sec. I need to check the chat to see if anybody's saying why they're running late. Don't know. Let's see. Where's my phone? I don't know where my phone is, but I have my iPad here. So let's see. Honestly, this trial is sort of extra. I mean, she's already in prison for life times 3. Times 4. Well, she hasn't been sentenced to Charles Vallow's, that conviction, but I'm going to say it'll be 4. This will be number 5, I would think. 5 life sentences. And I guess, there's always a possibility she could get overturned on one or the other of them, but I kind of doubt it. I think she is where she's going to stay. Anyway, what was I looking up? Oh, what's going on in the chat? So So are you guys following this case out of Washington? It's so sad. These 3 little girls, their last name is Decker. I don't know their first names. I'm sure we're going to learn their first names. They go missing. Dad and mom split up. They have a parenting agreement, and who says Trump's going to pardon her? That's hilarious. So they have this parenting agreement, and apparently dad's down on his luck, homeless, living out of his vehicle, but he shows up to visit the kids, and he take them with him, and I don't know where he was going, but he never brings them back. And when the mom calls, hey, Deborah, when mom calls to report that they're missing, and I think because there's going to be more about this, but according to the press release, she didn't qualify for an Amber Alert. Like, how do you not qualify for an Amber Alert? Your 3 children were not returned to you in a timely fashion, and that was very out of character for this guy. So she gives them the identification of his truck, and they put it into their system where they have cameras all over everywhere, and they check all these cameras. They locate the vehicle. He's not there. And then they find it's in the woods. It's in a campground. They find the bodies of the 3 girls, and the autopsies said that they were suffocated. But there's a manhunt going on for this guy. They cannot find him, or they haven't found him yet. But that's going to be another trial for the future that we'll cover. I mean, it's sad. I don't like to do children, but that's an interesting case. Very, very much so. He can't pardon state convictions. There you go, Sherry. We're protected from Trump. The fact that he pardoned the Crashleys is just crazy. Yeah. So if you guys wouldn't mind, while we're waiting for this court to start, even if you're watching back on the replay while we're waiting, if you could give me a thumbs up, I would really appreciate that. And consider subscribing. Love to have you as a member of the channel. It was disgusting, Sherry, because, come on. Why is that even on his radar? What does he care about the Crashleys? Meanwhile, this guy that threw the Molotov cocktails at the Jewish people, the Palestinian guy, I'd have put his ass on a plane right away. You're out of here, man. Gone. But and then he tried to put his family on the plane. Like, what did his family do wrong? Money. Pay to play. Yep. Okay, where are they? Why are they not here? Oh, I said I was going to look at the chat on the other channel, see if anybody's saying anything about why. Probably court did not start on time. That's, you know how that usually goes. And if you missed at the beginning, I do show what happened yesterday in court. Okay. Because she tried to get out of it. I'm sure she did. She's got some kind of mysterious illness. She does have a diagnosis, but it wasn't anything preventing her from sitting in courtroom. And what I didn't tell you guys is that for the rest of the day yesterday, she wouldn't talk to the judge. She would talk to the jurors. She asked questions of the jurors. Trina Kay, the prosecutor, she asked a couple of questions. She asked, did anybody have any feelings about individuals in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? Nobody had any feelings one way or the other. And then she asked, this was an interesting one. Apparently, Brandon Boudreaux, who is the victim in this case of this attempted murder, still alive. We're going to hear from him. He drives a Tesla. So she said, because this is a whole political hotbed right now, does anybody have anything against people who drive Teslas? And none of the jurors raised their hand. I mean, come on. He bought a Tesla, poor thing. I'm sure he regrets it. But every time Lori, she addressed the jury, she seemed fine. But then when outside the presence of the jury, she just put her head down. She wouldn't talk to the judge. And so he actually put it on the record. She, I wanted to be noted that she seems fine when she's talking to the jury, but as soon as she's outside their presence, she will not talk to me. So it's just weird, very weird. All right, let's find YouTube. Turn my volume down. Okay, so Nate is in the courtroom giving out live updates. See if he's done any updates here. So it looks like they got about a 13-minute delay in start. They didn't actually go live into the courtroom until 10:08. So we should be getting that feed any minute now, because he's talking about the opening statements. Said juror number 10 filled out a note. I want to be excused today. Reason physical. Driving home yesterday, I broke out in cold sweats. I did not sleep well. I must remove myself. It is a condition I had back in 2000 that I thought I could manage. This is an elderly gentleman who is a veteran. So he was excused from the jury. So we're down one alternate already. The trial hasn't even started. So we're going to see that play out as soon as says he was asked both sides if they were ready to proceed at 10:14. So almost 30 minutes ago. So we should be getting a feed here any minute from that. So I'm going to keep those updates there just in case they forget to turn the feed on. So how it works is I think Court TV broadcasts the feed and you can tie into that. Long Crime ties into it. Several news agencies tie into it. East Idaho News. And you can do that. I'll just show you East Idaho's feed. So any questions, comments? I know we're waiting. I can show you. We still have this going. Oh, sorry. That was my dryer. All right. Here we go. Because it should start any minute now. So we'll just leave it there. This is going to be her last trial, we hope. I was listening to the interview that Nate Eaton did with Brandon Boudreaux's private investigator. That was really interesting how this all kind of played out and tied into the kids being missing. And because when this happened, this was right in the beginning where the kids were missing and people were asking, where are they? Where are they? That's kind of the time frame for when all this goes down. Do you think she's going to serve her life sentence in Idaho? I think she's probably going to serve the rest of her life in Idaho. I don't think she'll ever get to Arizona. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong, I'm wrong sometimes, but I've heard she wants to be in Idaho. I don't know. She's not been in prison in Arizona, so she doesn't really have anything to compare it to, but she has been in prison in Idaho. Right now, she's sitting in a jail in isolation because of her notoriety. They have to keep her isolated from other people, which that can't be much fun, especially if you're a narcissist. I heard this expression. It was, how did they put it? Her validation gravy train is running out. I'm like, that's a cool way to describe it. Because she thrives on validation, Will she see Chad put to death? Oh, no. I highly doubt that. Nobody's going to see that. I mean, there'll be a select few people that are invited to watch it. But that's not going to happen probably for 20 more years. You know how that gets delayed and delayed and delayed because he's got all those appeals to work through. And that's going to be an interesting day when that actually happens. I don't know if I'll be around if it actually happens. Well, how old is Chad Daybell? Like, he's got to be in his 40s. Let me ask Google how old Chad Daybell is now. Maybe close to 50-ish. I don't even know how old Lori is now. And you notice yesterday in that film that I showed at the beginning, her coming, all bent over in the courtroom. Her hair's done. Her makeup's on. Like, if I was sick, I would not look like that. I got to tell you, I probably look like crap. I wouldn't be doing my hair or my makeup. I might put on civilian clothes, but I wouldn't be doing my hair or my makeup. Of course, I'm not a hair and makeup person anyway. So what was I doing here? I was going to do something on the iPad, but I forget what. Oh, seeing how old they are. Hold on. How old is Chad Daybell? It's thinking. Ooh. Okay. It picked up the it's thinking part. How old is Chad Daybell? Oh, he's 56 years old. He's going to be an old man by the time they put him to death. Yep. So Lori's got to be close to that, right? Don't you think? How old is Lori Vallow Daybell? She must not give out her age too much because it didn't pop up. How old is Lori Vallow? She's got to be in her 50s, I would think. I don't know. She said 51 at Charles's trial. Oh, so 52, maybe 53, that kind of thing. Oh, yeah, I think she's just had it with this whole thing. And she's, as a narcissist, she's starting to realize that, like I said, the gravy train is almost up on the validation. She's, okay, here we go. We have the courtroom. Let's make sure we can hear it. I will mute myself while this is going. Don't forget to tell me to unmute. You know how I always forget that. So.
All right, let's go ahead and bring in the jury. We'll commence with the opening statements. We'll have access to email right now.
Yes.
Okay, so maybe an email can be sent to Mr. White to see if, or even your paralegal that's now walking in could see if there's some way to coordinate picking up any documents that are needed. Or if they could even be digitally emailed over, if you need assistance printing them, we can do that too. All right, please be seated. Members of the jury, welcome back. As you can see, we have extra jurors just in case someone can't proceed, which you'll observe that we already had to use or let one juror go. At this time, the state can proceed with its opening statement.
Thank you. A Jeep Wrangler. The Texas license plate, no rear tire, and dark tint was parked right up next to Brandon Boudreaux's driveway. Idle. At 9:13 a.m. on October 2nd of 2019, Brandon Boudreaux returned home. That Jeep had been idling there already for over an hour. When Brandon turned onto his street, he immediately noticed this Jeep because it was parked so close to his driveway. The back of the Jeep was facing towards him, and he immediately also noticed that there was no rear tire. He saw a Texas plate on the Jeep, and then he saw that back window of the Jeep open up, a rifle barrel come out and point at him, and then bang! He heard a shot and his window shattered right next to him. Brandon hit the accelerator and he took off. He turned the corner and drove a block or so away and stopped, calling 911. He talked to the operator and told them where this Jeep was going. As Brandon was speaking with the 911 operator, he had no idea that that bullet had struck his car just a few inches from his head. You'll learn that in the back of that Jeep was this defendant's brother, Alex Cox. He had been lying in wait with a rifle for Brandon to return home. This defendant, Lori Vallow Daybell, the woman seated over here, had loaned her Jeep to her brother so he could drive it to Arizona, so he could be in the back of that Jeep with very dark tint that no one could see through and wait for Brandon to return home. The goal of this defendant and her co-conspirators, to shoot and kill Brandon Boudreaux. So let's talk about October 2nd and the weeks leading up to that. All of the actions that this defendant did in furtherance of that conspiracy and the premeditated murder of Brandon Boudreaux. I'm going to start with a little background for you. In June of 2019, Brandon Boudreaux was still married to his then wife, Melanie. You're going to learn that Melanie is this defendant's niece. You're going to learn they were very close. And you're going to learn that they both had it out for Brandon. On June 25th, Brandon and Melanie got into an argument. And Brandon learned that this defendant had told his wife that he was gay, that he had hacked into her computer, and that Brandon was trying to work with her then husband to take her temple recommend away. We're going to learn that many of the people, including Brandon and this defendant, are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And having your temple recommend taken away is a very significant event. You're going to learn and see that Brandon actually texted Lori Vallow on the 25th of June to confront her about these lies, and that she never responded. By July, just a short while later, Brandon and Melanie were seeing a mediator and proceeding through a divorce. You're going to also hear that during this time, Lori Vallow and Alex Cox lived here in Arizona. In fact, Lori lived in Chandler. You're going to hear about an incident that occurred on July 11th of 2019 in Chandler involving Lori Vallow and Alex Cox. The Chandler police were out at this defendant's residence and they took photographs of some vehicles. One of those vehicles was a 2018 Jeep Wrangler with Texas license plates, LWD 0997. That will be very important to you. They also noted that Alex had his own car, a Ford F-150. Both of those vehicles were in Chandler in July. You're going to learn that in August through September, Lori Vallow and her brother Alex Cox moved up to Rexburg, Idaho, to be closer to this defendant's soon-to-be husband, Chad Daybell. Both of them moved into a complex at 565 Pioneer Road in Rexburg, Idaho. Lori took the Jeep Wrangler and a Nissan Rogue, and Alex brought his Ford F-150. So everyone had their own vehicles. You're going to learn that as the divorce is proceeding between Brandon and his then wife, Melanie, that they put their house up for sale. And Melanie moved out and got a rental property. When their house finally sold, Brandon had to rent a home too. And on September 13th of 2019, he rented a house at 3875 East Phelps Street in Gilbert. Brandon will tell you his plan initially was to stay in his own house almost up to the time of the closing and then move into the rental property. You will see a text message that Melanie asked Brandon for his new address. They had children in common, so he didn't think anything of this. And he sent her the address. That was on September 17th. You'll learn that Melanie Boudreaux, this defendant's niece, was the only person who knew Brandon's address, who knew 3875 East Phelps Street, and who also knew this defendant and Alex Cox. Brandon barely moved into that house before the shooting. In fact, he'd moved in sooner than he thought because Melanie told him she was going out of town and offered him the kids for an extra weekend. And so he moved in sooner and took the kids while she flew to Rexburg, Idaho on September 26th through the 29th to be with this defendant. So in the weeks leading up to this October 2nd shooting, we'll talk about all of these things that were done in furtherance of this conspiracy, starting with Lori Vallow's Jeep. You'll learn that Alex Cox searched out a place to have extra window tinting put on the Jeep. And I say that because you're going to see the photos from the Jeep in July, and you'll see there's tinting on the windows, but you can still see into it. And so on September 25th, Alex Cox took that Jeep to Dan's Window Tinting in Rexburg, Idaho, and he paid $200 to put some of the darkest tint you could put on it. You'll see those photos of what that Jeep looked like afterwards. This is the first action of this defendant, Lori Vallow, in the conspiracy, loaning her brother this Jeep and allowing him to put on these dark tint to get it ready so he can lie in wait and no one could see him in the back with that rifle. It is her first mistake, using that Jeep and tying herself to the conspiracy and to the premeditation. Also on September 25th, you're going to learn that Lori Vallow and her accomplice, Alex Cox, went to the Walmart Superstore in Idaho Falls. You're going to learn that's not far from Rexburg. And they purchased a burner phone. Now, a burner phone is a phone that you don't have to put your subscriber information to. And so how do we know that Alex Cox was there and Lori Vallow was there? Well, you're going to learn they each had their own cell phone like most of us do, and that Alex Cox's cell phone was utilizing Wi-Fi inside that Walmart at the time that burner phone was purchased with cash. And you'll learn that this defendant's cell phone that was subscribed to her was utilizing cell towers in the area of that Walmart at the time that that burner phone was purchased. Lori Vallow and Alex Cox knew that he would need a phone when he drove down here, but they knew you don't want to bring your own phone. It's a great, you'll be tracked, right? So they bought this burner phone so that Alex would have contact while he drove down here and away. But Alex made a mistake. Because like any other phone, you can still use a burner phone to access Google or your Gmail accounts. And you're going to learn that Alex accessed his Gmail account. In this investigation, you'll learn the police executed many search warrants, and one of them was on Alex Cox's Gmail account, homerjmaximus@gmail.com. You're going to learn that Alex searched for things like window tinting in Rexburg, that he searched for places to practice shooting ranges. You're going to learn that he searched different things about angles or trajectories of shots. You're going to learn that the day before, on October 1st and the morning of October 2nd, he searched 3875 East Phelps Street, where Brandon Boudreaux lived. You're going to learn that after the shooting, Alex Cox actually searched for directions on how to get away through a back road. He knew he hadn't killed Brandon. Brandon's calling 911, and so he searched for Pine Top, Holbrook, Moab, Utah, Fillmore, Utah, and eventually Idaho Falls as he made his way back through back roads. You're going to learn that the police also executed search warrants on this defendant's Gmail account, lollytimeforever@gmail.com. On September 30th, the day when her brother took her Jeep and started driving down to Arizona, she searched, quote, how to get the back seat out of my Jeep Wrangler. And she also searched a YouTube video, Jeep Wrangler JK rear seat removal, how to DIY YouTube video. This defendant continued to be a co-conspirator and to aid her accomplice, Alex Cox, by searching how to remove that back seat of the Jeep so he could better lie in wait to shoot Brandon. This was the defendant's second mistake, and more evidence of her being a co-conspirator and the premeditation. This defendant also, on September 30th, began aiding Alex by becoming his alibi. You'll hear from Nick Valance, who is an FBI agent who deals with cellular analysis, that around 4:30 p.m. on September 30th, Alex Cox's cell phone, the one that he subscribed to, moved from his apartment in this same complex where he and Lori Vallow lived to Lori Vallow's unit. And from then on, for the next couple days, Alex Cox's phone remained with this defendant. Meanwhile, that burner phone from that Idaho Falls Walmart on September 30th started moving towards Arizona. You will hear that on October 2nd of 2019, at about 8 in the morning Arizona time, about an hour before the shooting, this defendant created the alibi. She had Alex Cox's phone call her phone to make it look like he was still in Rexburg, Idaho, instead of in Gilbert, Arizona. That fake call lasted about 24 minutes. Both of those cell phones were using the same cell tower in Rexburg, Idaho. This was Lori Vallow's third mistake. More evidence that she was a co-conspirator and of that premeditation to aid her brother in this shooting of Brandon Boudreaux. So how do we know, though, that Lori Vallow's Jeep drove from Idaho to Arizona? Well, we're going to start by learning about what we call LPRs, or license plate readers. You will learn and see a photo of Lori Vallow's Jeep in Arizona on October 1st of 2019, up near Holbrook on the I-40. You'll hear that the DEA has a license plate reader there, and they took a photo of Lori Vallow's Jeep with that license plate LWD 0997 on its way to Gilbert, Arizona. You're also going to learn that the police later recovered that Jeep back up in Rexburg, and they did a couple different search warrants on it. And what they recovered inside the Jeep, among other things, was a receipt from October 1st of 2019 from Mesa, Arizona, the day before the shooting, from a restaurant called Los Favoritos out on Power Road. You're going to learn that at the time, the burner phone is down here in Arizona. You'll learn that Alex Cox was using his Gmail and Googling an address on Power Road around the time when we then see the receipt. Alex Cox, Lori Vallow's Jeep, and Alex's rifle are here in Arizona waiting to commit this shooting. Meanwhile, up in Rexburg, on October 1st, this defendant does a little more additional help. She goes to a storage unit in Rexburg, Idaho, and rents unit C52. The next day, on October 2nd, when the shooting is happening down in Arizona, or after the shooting actually, she brings her soon-to-be husband, Chad Daybell, with her. And you will see video of this as she and Chad Daybell put the rear tire and the rear bench seat of that Jeep into the storage unit. Using the storage unit for that Jeep tire and that bench seat so that her co-conspirator, Alex, could lie in wait in the back of the Jeep, waiting for Brandon to return home that morning. This is, again, evidence of that conspiracy and of the premeditation to kill Brandon. So October 2nd, the morning of this shooting, you will see that Alex Cox was Googling that address, 3875 East Phelps Road. His burner phone from Idaho Falls, Idaho, is in Gilbert, Arizona. He's using his Gmail account, and he is using cell towers around Melanie Boudreaux's residence. Now, this is important because Melanie knew that Brandon had their kids. They had 4. She knew that Brandon that morning was going to have to drop off 3 of the kids at school and that they would exchange their youngest. They would meet at a park. Brandon would text Melanie, let her know he was there. She would respond, and they would exchange their youngest child. While Brandon was leaving his house to take his kids to school, that Idaho burner phone moves to his residence and begins waiting for him. Alex kept the Jeep running as he waited for Brandon to return. What Melanie didn't know was that Brandon was going to the gym after dropping off the kids, and so Alex had to wait longer. You'll hear that one of Brandon's neighbors noticed this Jeep. It's a neighborhood that doesn't have any real easy ingress or egress. You'll see a map of it. So there's very little through traffic. And so the neighborhood knows and recognizes most of the same cars. And you'll hear from a neighbor that as he was backing out, he saw this Jeep parked the wrong way on the road, nose to nose with another vehicle that he did recognize. He saw the dark tinting. He saw it was running. And he thought it just stood out as unusual in his neighborhood. It made him actually look into his rearview mirror to note it had a Texas license plate. This was about 30 plus minutes before Brandon arrived home. When Brandon got to the house that day, Alex was ready with the rifle. And we know that he was able to just lift up that back window because the tire wasn't on it. Alex fired 1 shot. Luckily, he did not hit Brandon. You will see that Brandon was driving a Tesla at the time. And unlike many cars, there's no frame around the window. The window just goes into the door, into the car itself. The shot hit the frame of the vehicle, but right where the window goes up into it. And you'll see that there is damage to the window as well as the bullet hole into the frame of the vehicle itself, right above Brandon's head when he was sitting in that driver's seat. You'll hear that when Brandon took off, the window remained in the door, that he drove away and then eventually circled back around and went into his driveway. You'll hear that for a Tesla, when you put the car in park, the door automatically opens and the whole window just shattered out. Brandon was on the phone with 911 soon after the shooting. You'll hear that call, him actually sounding out of breath from the fear. And he waited for the police to arrive. Alex Cox, of course, is Googling how to get out of there and get back to Rexburg, Idaho. And by October 3rd, he was back there. That same day on October 3rd, you will see that Alex Cox and Lori Vallow went back to the storage unit. They removed that rear tire. They removed the rear seat of the Jeep and took it with them. You will again see video of that. You'll also see that they Googled that day, news in Gilbert, shootings of Brandon, to try to find out what the police knew. How did the police figure out that this defendant and Alex Cox were involved? Well, when the police were interviewing Brandon, they asked him if he had any enemies. Who would want to do this? And Brandon told the police the only people he could think of was Lori Vallow and Alex Cox. He told them that Lori had lived in Texas and that the Jeep had a Texas license plate. And he told them about that incident on July 11th of 2019 in Chandler involving Lori Vallow and Alex Cox. And he believed this was all tied together. You'll hear that the Gilbert police reached out to the Chandler Police Department and learned about that Jeep with the Texas plates, LWD 0997, the same plate that was seen on that license plate reader on October 1st coming into Arizona. The Gilbert police learned that Lori Vallow and Alex Cox were living in Rexburg, Idaho, and they reached out to law enforcement there. You'll hear that on November 1st, police in Idaho went to 565 Pioneer Road, that apartment complex, and they saw Lori Vallow, they saw Alex Cox, and they saw Chad Daybell. They didn't see the Jeep that day, and so they went back a few days later on November 4th and saw the Jeep located near Lori Vallow's residence. Tires back on it, rear seat is back in it. You'll hear that they impounded it. And on November 18th, the Gilbert police flew to Idaho to process it. You're going to learn about GSR, or gunshot residue. You're going to learn that they process the vehicle. Basically, they're little sticky kits. GSR is microscopic. You can't see it. So you try to collect it, and then you give it to an expert to look through it. You will hear that those kits were sent to the Phoenix Police Department and reviewed, and that particles indicative of gunshot residue were located on the kits that were tested from the rear of that Jeep Wrangler, and that this is consistent with a gun being fired from the rear of the Jeep. You also hear that the Gilbert Police Department collected DNA from areas like the steering wheel, the gear shift, seatbelt buckles, and that they got a blood blot from Alexander Cox. DNA profiles were created from the steering wheel and other areas around the driver's seat. And the DNA was found to be a mixture, multiple people, but the major contributor was Alexander Cox. Again, you will hear that the police executed multiple search warrants on cell phones, cell tower usage, data from Gmail accounts, and data from iCloud accounts. You will see a map of Lori Vallow's cell phone, Alex Cox's cell phone, as well as that burner phone from that Walmart in Idaho Falls, the one that was associated to Alex Cox's Gmail account. You will hear from Nick Valance from the FBI, and he'll show you how that burner phone went from Rexburg, Idaho, down to Gilbert, Arizona, was there for the shooting, and returned back to Rexburg, and was never used again after that. You will learn that the only phone number that burner phone called or received calls from was Chad Daybell, this defendant's soon-to-be husband. The same phone, of course, that was using those cell towers right around Brandon's home at the time of the shooting. This defendant, Lori Vallow Daybell, has been charged with conspiracy to commit the first-degree murder of Brandon Boudreaux on October 2nd of 2019. The evidence in this case will prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that this defendant conspired with Alex Cox and others to kill Brandon. She provided the means, the Jeep, she helped get the Jeep ready, and she tried to provide an alibi for her co-conspirator. At the end of this trial, the state will ask you all to hold this defendant accountable and find her guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Thank you.
Would the defense like to give an opening statement at this time?
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, here we are at trial. And the judicial system can be difficult to understand at times. There are laws and rules and statutes that govern how things will proceed in this trial. You yesterday got to hear the preliminary jury instructions, so you kind of got an order of how things are going to go. In order for someone to be charged with a crime, as I have been,
Your Honor, I'm going to object to argument versus an opening statement.
I'll remind the defendant, an opening statement should be a preview of what is to be expected at trial. So go ahead.
that law enforcement presents evidence that they gather, and the state prosecutors are going to present that to you. Sometimes the state charges a defendant with a crime. They have charged me with a crime, a very serious crime. Sometimes they take the allegations to a grand jury to decide if the
I'm
defendant
going
should
to
be charged.
object again, Your Honor. Improper
That's,
argument. Asked to strike.
Hold on. The jury should disregard that last comment. How the charges arrived here are not for the jury's consideration. The prior proceedings are not for the jury's consideration. Please proceed.
The state or the prosecution will then take the information gathered, the evidence from law enforcement, and present to you a story, a theory, their hypothesis of what happened. In this case, the prosecutor was not present during this alleged crime. The Gilbert Police Department was not present during this alleged crime. So it is their job to fill in the gaps, make up a theory, and present it to you, the jury, at trial. This is their job. They are not witness to the actual events because they weren't there that day with Brandon at the house when this alleged shooting occurred. This case is about a conspiracy. And a conspiracy is when two or more people make an agreement to commit a crime. They have to willingly and knowingly participate. Conspiracy is an ancient word that appears in the Bible on many occasions. Judas conspired against Jesus with the chief priests for
I'm going to
30 pieces of silver.
object to, unless this is being presented at trial, I'm not sure that this is appropriate opening.
What is the legal objection?
Well, you're arguing. The opening statement is not argument. I'm going to allow it briefly, but I may cut you off depending on where you're going with that.
Cain conspired against Abel, his brother. This case is a case of conspiracy. The charge against me is that I conspired with my brother, Alex Cox, to murder my niece's husband, Brandon Boudreaux. But you will find, as you begin to see the evidence put forth in this case, that there was not any animosity between Brandon and myself. I personally did not have any motivation to have harm come to Brandon. In fact, Brandon and I had a very friendly relationship all of the time that I have known him. I first met Brandon when he was marrying my niece, Melanie.
And Your Honor, I'm going to object to, unless the defendant's
Hold on.
testifying.
Can I have the parties approach briefly? Can I have you approach briefly? Go ahead.
I first met Brandon when he was marrying my niece, Melanie. Melanie and I are very close because my sister, her mother, passed away when she was just 9 years old. So Melanie and I think of each other and love each other like a mother and daughter, even though we are aunt and niece. So our families remained close, Melanie and Brandon's family and my family. And in each other's lives, like everyday lives. We spent holidays together and shared in everyday life. I was there for Melanie and Brandon's wedding and for the birth of all 4 of their children. I was also very close to all 4 of their children. In this case, you will hear Brandon himself tell you that someone shot a gun at his car. You will learn in this testimony that Brandon was not hurt. You will learn that he wasn't even sure what had happened. But you will hear that Brandon immediately blamed me, which begs the question, was I an enemy to Brandon? That is news to me, and hopefully by the end of this trial, we will all have some answers to that question. In this case, you will learn that Brandon had called 911, and Gilbert Police did respond. You will learn that Brandon speaks of a puke green Jeep, and then he offers the officers a camo green color that he's speaking of on his phone. He says a green Jeep. Then you will hear the neighbor who says that it was a dark blue Jeep that was parked in front of the neighbor's house. You will learn that Brandon very quickly hired a private investigator to find out where I was living out of the state of Arizona so he could inform the police. You will see Brandon exchange email information with Detective Pillar, the case agent in this case, about my whereabouts and about the financial dealings of my niece, Melanie Boudreaux. You will learn that Brandon was not particularly satisfied with the investigation that Gilbert Police was conducting, so he did his own investigation, hiring his own private investigator to follow his wife, Melanie Boudreaux. You will find out that Brandon had access to the VIN number of a Jeep and gave it to the police. You will find out that after that event, he quickly changed his story from a camo green Jeep to a gray Jeep. You will then learn that Brandon continued to provide information he was personally finding out to Detective Pillar, the case agent in this case. You will learn that Detective Pillar and Brandon discussed through email how they can demonstrate Melanie's financial gain if Brandon were to have died around October 2nd, 2019. This is what a conspiracy looks like. 2 people trying to set up another person for a crime. My niece, Melanie Boudreaux, is named by the state as a co-conspirator. However, she has not been charged with the crime.
I'm going to object
but
and
I
have that
have.
struck as well, Your Honor.
Jury should disregard that statement. You're going to receive an instruction later that all persons that may be involved would not necessarily be charged or called as witnesses, and you'll follow those instructions later. Go ahead.
I was not living in Arizona at the time this alleged incident happened on October 2nd, 2019. I was not even aware such an event had taken place. I did have a close relationship with my brother Alex, but I was not aware of his every move. Melanie also had a close relationship with Alex, but also was not aware of his location at all times. Brandon and Alex also had a good relationship until this accusation. They saw each other frequently at all of our family parties and get-togethers and would often be seen laughing and talking. Alex was a comedian who kept our family laughing. Alex passed away in December 2019 of natural causes, so he is not here to defend himself.
And I'm going to object again to that as well, since he's not party to this. He's
All
not
right,
here.
I'll just remind the jury that what is said in opening statements is not evidence, it's not sworn testimony. Please proceed.
Although the state has alleged that there are several co-conspirators in this case, I am the only one being charged with a crime. So you will be the judge. You will hear and see evidence presented by the state. The state has, according to the law, 100% burden to prove to you
I'm
that
going to
a
object to misstatement
crime-
of the law in terms of 100%.
All right, again, this is a little bit bordering on argument, but the jury will receive the instructions on what is and what is not proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
the state has the burden to prove that a crime has been committed here and that I committed that crime. That is the way the law is written. I do not have to show any evidence or put up a defense. I do not have to testify. That is the law. The prosecutors from the state have to prove to you that I conspired, meaning made an agreement with my brother to murder Brandon. So you will decide. Right now, according to the law, I am innocent. I remain innocent until the state of Arizona and its prosecutors show you enough evidence to convince you that I had anything to do with this alleged crime. And I want you to look carefully and determine if this event was a crime at all. Did a shooting actually occur? Only Brandon claims that it did. Only Brandon names me and Alex. You will learn that Brandon himself did own a gun. You will learn that Brandon knew how to shoot his gun. You will learn that Brandon and Melanie were going through a divorce. And you will learn that even though Brandon is the one who actually filed for a divorce, he was blaming me for his divorce. You will learn that the information that the Gilbert Police Department and Detective Pillar, the case agent on this case, learned about me and my brother Alex was from Brandon Boudreaux. You will learn that Brandon and Detective Pillar communicated frequently and were on a first name basis. I want you to look closely at the motivation of Brandon and the Gilbert Police Department because I'm the only one charged with the crime. And I need you to decipher what really happened here, because I'm the only one who's being asked to pay a consequence for this
And
crime.
again, Your Honor, I'm going to ask to object and strike that. There's
Sustained, the jury in their instructions received an instruction that said the jury is not to consider a penalty. That will be in the final instructions there as well. The jury's job is to determine whether or not the state has proved the case beyond a reasonable doubt or the charge beyond a reasonable doubt. Go ahead, proceed.
You will hear many references during this trial about the state versus Lori Daybell. Well, who is the state? The state are the prosecutors.
going to object to argument and relevance.
Sustained.
And you, the jury, are brought in to stand between the state and me.
And I'm going to object again to improper statement of the law, argument, and relevance.
Sustained.
You are here to say if a crime has even been committed at all. You are here to say if I committed this very crime and if the state proved this to you beyond a reasonable doubt. If at the end of this trial you have reasonable doubt, then I remain innocent. If the state does not prove to you that I, 1, committed a crime, and 2, committed this crime, then I remain innocent. In this case, you will hear a lot of speculation. The definition of speculation is an idea or guess about something that is not known. During this trial, the state will try to convince you that I committed this crime by using speculation, innuendo, and insinuation. And the state is hoping that this will be enough. In this trial, you will in fact witness a power struggle between the state and the defendant.
Your Honor,
For
I'm
what
gonna
a fact
object to
really
argument.
is.
Sustain.
Because they want to convince you, the jury, that a fact is speculation, that a fact is innuendo, that a fact is insinuation, that they knew what I was thinking, what I was feeling, what I was planning, when they don't know at all. You, the jury, have all the power to decide what the facts are and what they're not. Not the state, not the judge, not law enforcement, you. So I implore you to listen carefully and decide for yourselves if the state's theory really makes logical sense. What motivation did I have? What malice have I ever shown to anyone? What benefit would I gain? I am a person who loves all people and has no malice towards anyone, not even the prosecutors who wrongfully try to convict me.
Your Honor, I'm going to object again to relevance and to argument.
Sustain.
I am all about spreading love and will continue to do so, even after this trial is complete, no matter the result. Thank you.
All right, the state can call its first witness.
Thank you. The state will call Brandon Boudreaux.
I am going to stay live since she is calling Brandon.
You're going to come up.
I think this is really going to be very interesting. I wasn't sure this was going to be the first witness, but since it is, I'm going to stay live for this.
Raise your right hand, please. You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
All right, sir, go around the court reporter, have a seat up here to my left.
Your Honor, could we have a sidebar?
Is it about what we discussed earlier? The state's probably going to, you won't complete your direct before lunch?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay.
Okay.
I will, but not for a second. Would you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Brandon Boudreaux. I live here in Arizona.
And if you can pull the mic just a little closer to you and roll in a little closer. Thank you.
Sorry.
It's okay. How old are you, Brandon?
I'm 40 years old.
You said you're currently living in Arizona?
I am, yes.
What do you do for a living?
Currently, I own a solar company.
Okay. I want to talk to you sort of about your marriages. Are you currently married?
I am.
Do you have a prior marriage?
I did, yes.
I want to talk about your prior marriage. When did you get married initially?
I was married initially October 31st, 2008.
And who were you married to?
Melanie Cope at the time, she became Boudreaux.
How long were you and Melanie married?
A little over 10 years.
Did you two have any children?
We have 4.
Do you recall approximately when you began divorce proceedings with Melanie?
It would have been in July of 2019.
And do you recall approximately when your divorce with Melanie was finalized?
It would have been in October of 2019.
Was it before or after October 2nd?
It was the middle of October,
Okay.
so after.
Now, do you have family here in Arizona?
I have a brother who lives in Tucson now, but at the time I did not have any family here in Arizona.
They lived in another state.
Yes.
Did Melanie have family that lived here in Arizona?
Yes, she did.
Did you know someone by the name of Lori Vallow?
I did. That was Melanie's aunt.
And did you spend a lot of time with Melanie's aunt, Lori Vallow?
Yes, we spent a lot of time together.
Do you see her in the courtroom today?
I do.
Can you point her out and tell us what she's wearing?
She's directly behind you wearing glasses and a blue top.
Your Honor, may the record reflect the witness has identified the defendant.
It shall.
When you knew or were spending time with Lori Vallow, was she married at that time?
She was.
Who was her husband then?
Charles Vallow.
And how often would you see Lori Vallow and her family?
Pretty often. We would spend holidays together. We often vacationed together, and our children were close, so it wouldn't be unordinary to see each other every week.
Were you close with Lori Vallow's prior husband, Charles Vallow?
I was, yes.
Did you know other members of Melanie's sort of expanded family?
Yes, I did.
Did you know a person by the name of Alex Cox?
Yes, I did.
Who was he in relation to Melanie?
That would be her uncle.
So Lori's brother?
Correct, yes.
And before your divorce from Melanie, did you see Alex Cox often?
Not as often as Lori, but yes, I did see him.
Okay.
Usually at a family get-together.
Did you know anyone by the name of Chad Daybell?
No, I did not.
Did you later become aware that Lori Vallow married a Chad Daybell?
Yes, I did.
Can you try to describe for us the relationship between Melanie, your ex-wife, and her aunt, Lori Vallow?
I would say that she looked at her as maybe more than an aunt, like closer to a mother figure. Her mother passed away when she was younger, and she let her hold a lot of influence in her life.
Okay. Starting sort of the end of 2018 through 2019, did you notice Melanie spending a lot more time with Lori?
Can you ask that question one more time?
Sure. Starting sort of the end of 2018 through 2019, did you notice Melanie spending more time with Lori?
Yes.
In 2019, did you start to notice issues with your marriage with Melanie?
Yes, I did.
Without going into what was said, did you ever speak with Charles Vallow about Lori Vallow interfering with your marriage with Melanie?
Yes, I did. On a few occasions.
I want to talk to you about June 25th of 2019. Did that day stick out to you?
Yes, it does.
Why do you remember that date?
On June 25th of 2019, I had a long disagreement with my then wife. My grandfather had passed away suddenly of a heart attack a few days earlier, and she had told me she didn't want to go to his funeral, and that had led to the start of a disagreement that quickly changed and was very different than what I thought was going on.
I'm going to have you put your mic just a little closer to you.
Yes, sorry.
That's okay. So you said it started out as a conversation about going to your grandfather's funeral,
Yes,
and then it changed into something different?
it did, yes.
During this conversation with Melanie on June 25th, were you accused or told that you had been involved in doing some things to her aunt, Lori Vallow?
I was, yes. This sticks out because it was so bizarre to me. I was trying to talk to my wife about our relationship, and she was using different language that was confusing. She kept saying that she was going to reveal things about me, and it just didn't make sense. And then she accused me of hacking Lori's computer, which I knew I hadn't done, and I didn't know why it mattered to what we were talking about. So, that something like that sticks with you because it's just doesn't connect.
Do you know how to hack into other people's computers?
I do not.
So you're being accused of hacking into Lori Vallow's computer. Did anything get raised during this conversation regarding your sexuality?
Yeah, it was a very long argument. It started in the afternoon and went past midnight. And as things kept escalating, more different allegations that didn't make any sense kept coming up. And one of those was that God had revealed to her that I was gay. And that one stuck out because Charles had told me that that Lori was trying to convince her of that, which I thought was so bizarre. It just didn't make any sense. I was married and we had 4 kids. So.
Did you ever hear anything about allegations that you were trying to help Charles take Lori Vallow's temple recommend away?
It didn't come up in that specific argument, other than as a side mention of why I might have hacked a computer. But yes, I did hear those allegations.
I want to ask you, are you a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints?
Yes, I am.
Were you and Melanie both practicing members?
We were, yes.
Was Lori Vallow and her family practicing members?
As far as I knew, yes.
When we talk about a temple recommend, what is that?
Inside of our faith, we try to set aside the temple to be a place that's sacred. It's a place where you can be closer to God. And because you want it to be a sacred place, we try to live to a higher standard if we're going to go in there. It's the idea of trying to be more like the Savior's example and keeping promises or covenants that you make to him. And so in that process, most of us self-report to a bishop or an ecclesiastical leader and a stake president or a higher ecclesiastical leader, just to verify that you're doing your best to keep those promises. It's kind of a way to help you assess to decide if it's a place that you should go, or am I living in a way that I can go and feel good about, trying to get closer to God in that space, and am I living in a way that sets it aside and makes it somewhere special, somewhere sacred?
If someone's temple recommend is removed who is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, is that a really significant thing?
For most of us, we would feel like, personally, I would feel that way. It's something that is sacred to me and it is important. And so I would not want to lose that. It would be something that would reflect that I'm not doing a very good job of my goal to try to be more like my Savior.
Okay. When you were having this argument, this conversation with Melanie on June 25th, what are you thinking?
It began with just frustration, which when I took a little time and was introverted and thought about it, I realized wasn't fair. If she didn't want to go to a grandfather's funeral, I recognized that me feeling frustrated was something I should deal with myself, but not try to force someone else to do something that they weren't comfortable with. And then it was just really painful because the rest of it there's a lot of frustration that comes from, at the end of it, she was asking for a divorce and demanding that we end our marriage. And, I had 4 kids, and this was going to change their entire world. It was going to change everything for my family.
Did you, having spoken with Melanie, feel that Lori Vallow was involved in some of these things that Melanie was telling you that was why your divorce should end?
Can you ask that question one more time?
Sure. As you are listening to the things that Melanie was telling you that evening or afternoon into the evening of June 25th, did you believe that Lori Vallow had been involved in some of these ideas that were being told to you as to why your marriage should end?
Yeah, I mean, how else does her aunt's computer getting hacked even come up without Lori being involved? So I got pretty frustrated at one point, and I think I told her I'm going to take a break, and I texted Lori and Charles and tried to call both of them to discuss it with them, because I wanted them to understand the gravity. You know, this is my family. This is my kids. This changes the rest of their lives. You know, it's not just whatever was going on for those two.
So you told us that you just mentioned that you actually sent a text message or a couple of text messages to Lori Vallow that evening?
Yes, I did.
Can you scoot just a little closer? Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Why did you text Lori Vallow that night?
Hope that she would have integrity, that she would respond and acknowledge that I didn't hack her computer. I don't know, honestly, just hope, you know. I was trying to find something to fix the problem.
So you felt strongly enough that Lori Vallow was involved in these ideas that Melanie was putting at you that you actually reached out to her?
Yes.
Your Honor, show the defendant Exhibit 122. I could have my paralegal bring that up. I want you to look at Exhibit 122. Do you recognize those text messages?
Yes, I do.
Are those messages that you sent to Lori Vallow on June 25th of 2019?
Yes, they are.
Do those relate to the allegations that were being told to you by Melanie that Lori had provided her?
Yes, they do.
And that was you trying to fix these things that were lies?
Correct.
State will move to admit Exhibit 122.
Any objection?
No objection.
122 is admitted.
If I may publish. Okay. Brandon, just so we understand, when you were shot at on October 2nd of 2019, did you actually provide the police with your cell phone
I did, yes.
so they could download everything?
Yes.
And is this from your cell phone?
Yes.
So we see on June 25th of 2019 at 6:45 p.m., the first message that you sent? And was this phone number, the 808 number, Lori Vallow's phone number?
Correct.
In the message, what did you tell Lori?
I told her that Melanie believed I helped to try to get her temporary recommend taken away, and that we both knew that it wasn't true. Do you want me to just read it?
Sure.
Lori, I sent this to Charles. I'm sending it to you as well. Charles, Melanie believes I helped you to try to get Lori's temple recommend taken away. You and I both know that's not true. She does not believe me. I wanted to send this to both you and Lori. If either of you care at all for me or my children, you'll come forward and be truthful. I've never done anything to hurt either of you. I can't believe you would lie to her about something like this. I gave you a blessing when you're your worst in my home. My children will be punished if my wife leaves me or can't believe me when I have done nothing. This is on your heads to make it right.
So your initial thing was about that temple recommend because that was so important, right?
Yes.
But that was just one of the lies that had been told to you by Melanie.
Yes, and at this time I didn't know that she also believed that I was gay. That came after I had sent these texts.
Did you get a response after this first text?
No.
Do we see then a second text at 9:10 p.m., same day, September 25th?
Yes.
What did you say then?
At least have the respect to talk to me to my face, not whispered behind my back. She believes you and you are lying. This is going to affect my children.
Okay. Did she respond to you then?
No.
And a couple minutes later, did you send Lori another message?
I did.
What did you say then?
I will not stop until the truth is known. It says I didn't dip, but a typo. I didn't do the things you said, and because I know I did not, I will find a way to prove it.
Did Lori ever respond to any of those?
No.
Were you able to convince Melanie that these things that Lori had told her were not true?
No.
Would she listen to you about it?
After that evening, she would never spend time alone with me again. There was always someone else with us everywhere that we ever talked or communicated.
Did you want to get divorced?
No,
Did you agree to a divorce?
I did.
How did you and Melanie decide to go forward with the divorce?
We used a mediator.
How does that work?
You have choices. You can either each get your own lawyer and they can help advocate for you through the process, or you can use a mediator. Those are the two, or you can do it yourselves without lawyers, I guess, as well. And as you go through that divorce process, you really discuss two key concepts: all of the money and the finance side, and then the children when you have children. And so a mediator is helpful in being able to help you understand what the law thinks if you both can't agree on something, and help you go through and think. It's a lot to think about. And you know, you're very I was very emotional going through that. And so they're helpful that they can kind of guide you to make sure you're covering all your bases and you're thinking about the future for your kids, thinking about what's fair in the financials, all of those things.
At that time, what were the ages of your kids? I know, I got to go back a few years. So in 2019.
Braxton would have been 9. And then I would have had a 5-year-old and a, what would like be 2000, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old.
And you told us that you started to see a mediator sort of in July of 2019.
Yes,
Do you recall if it was the beginning, middle, or end of July?
beginning of July.
So really fairly quickly after you were confronted with these theories of you hacking Lori's computer and trying to take her temple recommend away.
Yeah.
As you went through a mediator, did you agree to have joint custody of your kids?
I did.
Did you and Melanie have a house at the time you were married?
We did, yes. And in the mediation, we agreed to sell it.
Now, prior to the sale of the house, did Melanie move somewhere else to live?
Yeah, we agreed that I would help her find a rental, which we did. And then our house was an expensive house. We were listing it at about $1 million. And so having those young kids inside of it while you're trying to have it show ready all the time was a concern. So we agreed we'd get a rental house where the kids would be able to stay so that they could just be kids and not have to try to live super, super clean. And I would stay in the house and just kind of live in it as a shell house till it's sold.
Okay. Do you recall approximately when Melanie moved out?
July, around the 14th or so, I think. I'm not 100. It's been 6
Mid-July?
years. Yeah, mid-July.
So the kids were living with Melanie in the rental house and you were staying in sort of I'll call it a community property house at this point. Do you recall when your house sold?
In September, I think we got it under contract, and at which point I started looking for a rental house, probably,
For yourself?
yeah, for me to move into so that we could then do our joint 50-50 custody
Okay.
with our kids.
Did you find a house to rent?
I did.
And was that the 3875 East Phelps Street in Gilbert?
Yes.
When you were looking for a residence, did you consider at all the location of Melanie's rental house?
Yeah, I tried to, we had agreed we would stay within a couple miles of each other so that it would be convenient for each of us. And I also tried to move close to where I had before I had built the home that we had, I had lived in that same neighborhood. So I tried to move closely to a place my kids would be familiar.
Okay. Did you sign a lease for that 3875 East Phelps Street on September 13th of 2019?
Yes.
What was your plan in terms of when you were going to move into that new house versus staying in the community home?
I was going to stay in the community home until right before we finished everything up. So like the end of September, and then I would move over to the new house.
And when was the community house supposed to close?
October 1st.
Okay. And what was the mediation agreement for that money on October 1st? Who would get what?
It was going to be split between me and Melanie, and it was supposed to all go to one account, and then I would transfer the money over to her.
Okay. So at some point, did the plan ever change as to when you were going to move into the Phelps house?
Yes, I heard from Melanie that I had an option to get my kids early, which I was getting very limited time with my children. That was hard for me. You know, it's difficult going through transitions like that. So she had offered, she said she was going out of town and that I could have my kids early if I got the house early. And so I was excited, and I quickly changed my plans and made a quick move from the current house into the new house to get it ready, because when you have young kids, you have to kind of prepare. You can't just move them in. Everything needs to be kind of organized.
During the mediation, had you and Melanie come up with an agreement as to when each of you would have the children?
Yes.
What was that agreement?
Mondays and Tuesdays would be my days. Wednesdays and Thursdays would be her days. And then we would rotate weekends.
So weekends for you guys was Friday through Sunday?
Correct.
And then how would you hand off the children, and what would happen with your youngest?
I worked, so she would watch my youngest even on my days. And then handoffs would happen at school. If they were in school, we would just drop off and the other person would do the pickup. If they weren't in school, then it would be drop off at each other's houses.
Okay. So you said you worked. Did Melanie work?
She did not.
So Melanie kind of just tells you she's going out of town on the 26th and offers the children to you. Do you recall about when you moved into now this residence on Phelps?
It's been a really long time. Shortly after, I think, that conversation, about a few days prior to when I got the kids. I think it took me a couple days to move in.
So you had the kids on the 26th.
I did, yeah.
How did you You told us you had been planning to move in a little bit later. How did you get moved earlier, quicker? Did you have people help you? What'd you do?
My neighbors that lived across the street from me at the house that I was selling noticed that I was moving and offered to help. I just went and got a truck and decided to move. I was excited. I didn't tell anybody even. I just kind of jumped after it, and then one other friend found out, and he brought another friend. So there's 4 people who helped me move, and they were the only people. I mean, I immediately had my kids after. They're the only people who even knew that I had moved. It was a very quick decision.
Now, you told us that part of the agreement would be that you and Melanie would would drop off the kids. At any time, did Melanie ask you for the address of your new residence?
Yes, she did.
Did you provide it to her?
Yes, I did.
You think anything of it when she asked you that?
I mean, no, I had said I would give her my address always. We had to drop each other the kids, so she had to know where I lived.
Okay. You told us that you hadn't told anyone else your address?
Yeah, it wasn't like out of secrecy. It just hadn't come up yet because it was so quick.
So Melanie knew your address,
Yes,
and then you said 2 of your neighbors helped you move,
correct.
so they knew your address. And then you said one of your friends helped you move?
And he brought another friend, so 2 of my friends knew where I lived.
Okay, so 5 people knew your address?
Yes.
Shown Defense Counsel 123, if I can have my paralegal approach. Do you recognize those text messages?
Yes, I do.
Are those the text message between you and Melanie where she asks you for your new address and you provide it to her?
They are.
And was that on September 17th of 2019?
It is.
Your Honor, the state will move to admit Exhibit 123.
Any objection?
No objection.
123 is admitted.
The state will move to publish.
Go ahead.
So again, you told us that you had provided your cell phone to the Gilbert Police Department on October 2nd. Is this from your phone?
Yes.
And so Melanie texted you on September 17th at 10 in the morning. What's your new address?
That's correct.
And a few minutes later, 27 minutes later, you provided her 3875 East Phelps.
Correct.
You told us your parents did not live in Arizona, right?
That's correct.
And at the time, really, you didn't have any family in Arizona. Did your neighbors that helped you move know Lori Vallow?
No.
Did your neighbors that helped you move know Alex Cox?
No.
How about your friend that helped you move, the 2 people who helped you move with them? Did they know Lori Vallow?
No.
Did they know Alex Cox?
No.
Did you post your address on any LinkedIn or social media?
No.
So on September 17th and on September 26th, when you got the kids, were the only people that knew your address and knew Lori Vallow and Alex Cox, your then wife, Melanie Boudreaux?
Yes.
So on September 26th, you're in your rental house on Phelps Street. You have your children with you. And is this sort of the first time you have been there with your kids?
Yes.
And this was over a weekend, correct?
Correct.
So you had your kids sort of that weekend of the Saturday, the 27th and 28th. And then did you follow your normal schedule now of Monday and Tuesday having the kids?
Yes.
And then was October 2nd sort of Wednesday, October 2nd? And that would be the day you would normally exchange the
Correct.
children?
That was the first day that I would not have my kids.
Okay. And so on October 2nd would be the day that Melanie would now have control of the kids that evening.
Yes.
So I want to talk a little bit about your schedule with your kids the morning of October 2nd.
Okay.
Can you tell us sort of what your general schedule was? What'd you get up and do with all the kids?
Yeah, it's been a long time. You know, my kids are different now, but back then, I would probably wake up an hour and a half early. Got to wake each kid up individually. Kind of, each of them has different needs. I think Breeze was still in diapers. Blake might have even still been in diapers. So you wake them up, you make sure that you get them cleaned up, changed, you feed them. Got to get 3 of the 4 of them dressed. They don't know how to dress themselves. So you got to give yourself time. So probably an hour and a half making food, getting kids ready, making sure everybody's good to go and prepared so that when you get within a short amount of time of school, you can get the 2 that are in elementary school there on time.
All right, so you said you had 2 that were in elementary school. Are they in the same school?
Yes.
And so that leaves 2 other kids.
Yes.
What did you do with the other 2 kids?
Blake was in like a pre-K preschool that was right by the new rental that we got Melanie, and then I dropped Breeze off at Melanie's. Well, she didn't want me to come to her house, so I would drop her off at the park, and then watch her run to her mom.
Okay. Do you recall approximately when you left the house that morning to start taking the kids to drop them off at their different locations? Let me ask you this. Do you recall approximately when the kids had to be at school?
7. I probably would have left at 7:30. They probably started at 7:50. That's
And were the schools you said close to your Phelps Street?
it was like probably a 5 or 10 minute drive, depending on if there was some traffic or not.
Okay. So who did you handle first? Where did you go first?
I'd always drop the 2 that were in elementary school first. That was on the way to their mom's house. So we would take those 2, drop them at their school, and then I would drive the rest of the way to their mom's house and at the park and drop at the park right there by her house. And then I would go drop Blake at his school.
So on the morning of October 2nd, did you follow that same schedule and go to the park to drop off your youngest?
Yes.
And how would Melanie know that you were there?
I would text.
Okay. Did you do that morning?
I did.
And then you said you would kind of just once you knew she was there, let your daughter go to her.
Yeah.
So would you visually see her and then let your youngest go to her?
Of course, yeah.
Show Defense Counsel Exhibit 124. Like that, my paralegal approach with that. Do you recognize those text messages?
Yes.
And are they from October 2nd of 2019 around 7:40 in the morning?
Yes.
And do they reflect you letting Melanie know that you were there with your youngest?
Yes.
State will move to admit 124.
Any objection?
No objection.
124 is submitted.
If I may publish. So do we see here on October 2nd at 7:40 in the morning, you sent a text message to Melanie saying pulling up,
Correct.
and then you received a message for her that she'd be there in a minute?
Yes.
Were you able to hand off your youngest to Melanie?
Yes.
Did you go home after that?
I did not.
Did you tell Melanie where you were going after that?
I did not.
Where did you go?
I went to the gym.
How long, well, let me ask you this. Where was the gym in relation to your Phelps house?
It was a couple minutes away. It was on the way. It was midway between her and my Phelps house.
Okay. And how long were you at the gym? About?
Hour and a half.
Okay. Can you tell us what kind of car you were driving back in October of 2019?
It was a black Tesla Model X.
Okay. Two-door or four-door?
4-door. It's
Okay.
like an SUV.
How long had you had that Tesla?
A few years. I bought it, I want to say 3 or 4 years earlier.
Okay. So Melanie knew about that car?
Yes,
You had had it when you two were together,
correct.
and you continued to have it as you were going through the divorce proceedings.
Correct.
And you drove that Tesla to that park when you exchanged your youngest.
Yes, I did.
I want to talk a little bit about Tesla vehicles. They're electric, right?
They are, yeah.
They drive a little different than gas cars.
They do, yes.
Can you tell us first about the acceleration?
When you're driving a Tesla, they have when you take your foot off the gas, they built in a system that makes it slow down, so it like brakes for you. So they call it one pedal driving, but so when you push it, it'll accelerate really fast because that's just how electric motors work. The torque's very quick, so you can go much quicker. And it also, when you take your foot off the gas, it'll slow down a lot quicker too if you leave that feature on. So it drives very different than a gas car. You don't use the brakes as much.
Okay. So if you take your foot completely off the acceleration pedal, it almost stops.
Yeah, it can be very abrupt. It can feel like hitting the brakes.
And so had you learned over those years how to kind of slow down by taking your foot slowly off that acceleration pedal?
Yeah, you drive different.
Did your Tesla have any type of technology built in to automatically open a garage door when you're within a certain range of it?
Yeah, it did. It had that exact feature. It was when it got in a certain range, it would just send a garage door signal and open it up.
Had you programmed that feature at the Phelps house?
I did, yes.
If you put your Tesla into park, what would happen?
I used the feature where it would make the driver's side door just open automatically for you, so you didn't even have to reach over and open it.
Would it open all the way?
It would just slowly open. Sometimes it would open all the way. Sometimes it would open like a quarter of the way. There's like a sensor to make sure it doesn't hit stuff.
Okay. And so that was something you had programmed already, so every time you put your car in park, that would happen for you.
Yes.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the driver's door of your Tesla. In a lot of cars, we see a metal frame that goes around the window. Did your Tesla have that?
No, they make the window seal up into the frame of the car, and so there's no top frame on the door itself, no metal top frame.
Shown defendant exhibit 25. I can have my paralegal approach. Do you recognize what that photo is?
That's a photo of my car.
And does that show the door itself without the glass, but the frame of the door?
Yeah, does a really good job showing that.
State will move to admit exhibit 25.
Any objection?
No objection.
25 is admitted.
Okay. So Is this actually a picture of your vehicle from October 2nd of 2019?
Yes.
And so we can see that there's no sort of metal frame around where the window would be, right?
Correct.
Okay. And is this actually your glass window right here?
Yes, I believe it fell out when I opened the door, or when I put my car in park.
Okay. I want to talk to you about that morning of October 2nd. You drop off your youngest with Melanie. What did you said you went and dropped off your fourth child at sort of a day pre-K type of course?
Yeah.
And then you went to the gym.
Yes.
After you went to the gym, what did you do?
I drove back from the gym to my house.
Okay. What was your plan that morning?
My plan was to shower and go to work and meet with my business partners, and we had an owners meeting that day.
Okay. Can you tell us what happened when you turned into or onto Phelps Street that morning?
That morning, I made my usual left onto Phelps Street, and there's one house and then my house, and so it's not like you're driving. You're coming through a turn, so you're not moving super fast, and there's not a lot of distance, so I don't really push the gas very hard. But I remember coming around the corner, kind of letting it almost kind of coast as I was waiting for it to catch the signal and send my my garage door up. And while I was doing that, I noticed a Jeep that was parked, and it was really awkward.
Why was it awkward?
It was parked on top of the car that was normally there. So there's usually a van there, and it was just like parked nose to the van. And it was like, the back of it was almost blocking my driveway. It was parked so you just wouldn't think anyone would choose to park like that. So it kind of stood out to you right as you came around that corner. I noticed it had a Texas plate. The other thing that was awkward about it was and no back tire, which Jeeps always have the back tire. That's like their thing. So all of that stood out, right? I mean, you don't have a lot of time when you're coming around a corner like that, but all of that just like, I was like, oh, that's weird. And I remember thinking my neighbor must know somebody from Texas, because I'm new, I don't know anybody yet. And I was like, and man, they parked awkward, like that's a really crappy park job.
So that we understand, was the Jeep parked sort of the opposite way of traffic?
Yes.
And so when you come around the corner, you're seeing the back of the Jeep.
Correct.
And you said it was nose to nose with a white vehicle?
Yeah, I believe it's a van.
And was that a vehicle you had seen in the few days you had lived there?
Yeah, it had been parked there every day so far.
Okay. So you recognized that one. Was there a lot of other vehicles parked on the street?
No.
Just that Jeep right up to that one and on your driveway?
Correct.
When you were coming in and sort of slowing down, what do you see happen?
So as I let the car kind of coast in, the back window pops up. I see a muzzle. I hear a bang. And your fight or flight kicks in at that point. So for me, I just immediately thought, and my window shattered. All that happened in like the snap of a finger. And so I just immediately thought someone's shooting at me because I saw a muzzle. So I hit the accelerator and I just went straight. I no longer was planning on turning into my driveway to let the garage door trigger. And then
have you pull your mic just a little bit down again?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can lean forward. Could you hear all of that?
So let me go a little bit through it. So you said you saw the rear window open.
Yes.
Is that sort of the window that normally the tire would block from opening?
Yes.
Did you see any hands or anything pushing it open?
I can't say I did. The windows were dark, and I remember it lifting, and I remember seeing a muzzle.
Let's talk about the muzzle. Could you tell, Was it a handgun muzzle, a rifle muzzle? What are we
It
talking
looked,
about?
it looked like a rifle or a long gun, yes. Also, possibly like there was a silencer on it or a suppressor or something, because I remember the muzzle looked a little bit awkward at the end.
Okay. Have you shot guns before?
Yes,
Have you shot rifles before?
rifles and handguns and shotguns.
Did you grow up sort of shooting, hunting?
Yeah, my family hunts. I'm not a big hunter myself.
But you're familiar then with rifles and shotguns.
Yes,
Had you shot handguns before?
yes.
So when you saw this, what did you think it was, the muzzle that you saw?
I mean, you had a very short window, but it looked like a rifle to me with maybe a suppressor or something on it.
Okay, so it was able to come out of the window enough that it looked like a rifle to
Yes.
you. You said you heard something. Can you describe that for us?
It's a loud bang, gunshot. That's the only thing I can think of.
And you've heard gunshots before.
Lots of gunshots, yeah.
So you hear this and you recognize that as a gunshot.
Yes,
And you said then your window shattered.
correct.
Did you see a hole through your window?
No, which was confusing. So I was, all this stuff is happening quick. I'm sure I had some kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Shock, some form of shock. I'm sure there's a little bit of that, but I remember the first thought I had was I need to call 911. Someone just shot at me. So that, I remember my phone flying forward and backward because I was driving quickly and accelerating quickly. I remember getting my phone and calling 911 and just, I remember having a hard time breathing, just feeling overwhelmed that somebody shot at me. And then I think maybe because I was feeling a little guilty or something, I remember thinking like, oh, maybe, there's no bullet in my car. I don't see a bullet hole anywhere. Maybe they did, maybe it wasn't a real gun. Maybe I'm overthinking this, you have a lot of thoughts going through your head.
Did you ever say maybe it was a paint gun?
Yes, I think I did.
Thinking now, have you seen a paint gun before?
Yeah, I've played paintball lots of times.
Does paint come out? And
Not as loud and it marks stuff everywhere.
would it have left, in your experience, having fired paint guns, does it shoot out paint that you would then see?
Yeah, wherever it hits, it leaves a bunch. That's why it's called paintball.
Did you see any paint on your window?
No,
Were you thinking clearly at that point when you're thinking about that?
I think there's a lot of thoughts that go through your mind. It was a very stressful situation. I've never had someone shoot at me before.
You called 911 and you told us that you drove away from the area, right?
Yeah, I accelerated, went around a corner, and I parked by, there's a pool right there in the community. So I pulled over and parked next to the pool.
I want to show defense defendant two different maps of the area. I can have my paralegal approach with exhibits 1 and 3. Can you look at those two exhibits and tell me if you recognize them as maps of the neighborhood, a closer up, as well as a further away map of your Phelps Street address and the streets around it?
Correct. Yes, they are.
And those are sort of accurate maps of that whole area.
Yeah, I'd say they're accurate.
State would move to admit exhibits 1 and 3.
Any objection?
No objection.
1 and 3 are admitted. After you publish, let's recess.
I'm going to start with 1. Actually, I think it's this way. When you were driving to your residence, I'll do it this way. We see here 3875 East Phelps Street. Is that your address at that
Yes.
time? And so it was 2 houses in.
Yeah.
When you were arriving back to your residence that morning of October 2nd, can you describe for us how you came in to the neighborhood?
I guess people probably can't see when I point. Huh? I would have gone up.
Let me pull out just a little bit.
I would have come around where the map kind of starts there. Yeah, where your pen was. If you go down to that corner, I would have come there off Fairview, come all the way up, gone up that street where your pen was, and gone. And that's the way that I came in, where your pen just traced.
So you went through this intersection and then you turned left here, and that's where you saw, as you turned that corner, that Jeep Wrangler.
Correct.
Did you notice if the Jeep had 2 or 4 doors?
2 doors.
Okay. Did you notice anything about the license plate?
It was a Texas plate.
Were you able to get the license plate number?
I was not.
After the shooting, you told us that you sort of took off, and I'm putting exhibit 3 up now. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. So we see Phelps Street. Is that the same street we were talking about?
That is
You told us that you accelerated. Was it this direction on Phelps?
correct.
And what did you do when you got to this intersection?
Made a right on Cole, and you can see there's a pool right up there. I parked right there in front of that pool where that little walkway is, right on the.
So you parked right near the pool here.
Yeah, right where your pen tip was there, kind of by the E.
Were you on the phone with 911 prior to reaching that pool?
Yes, I was on the phone with 911, I think, as I got towards the end of Phelps Street.
Did you see the Jeep as you were there at the pool?
I did, yes.
And where did you see the Jeep go?
It came down Phelps Street, went north on Cole, then it made a right on Waite when it saw me, and then it continued down Waite and made a right down whatever that road is. There's no name on it. And then I lost it at that point. It went down Fairview, and if you go to the bottom of this, it actually exits out onto Pecos Road. So I knew where they had to have gone, because the only way out of that neighborhood is to go down that Fairview Street drive and go around on Francis and then go out onto Pecos. And so that's what I told the police when I told them what happened. I told them that it had exited out onto Pecos.
So basically, the only 2 ways to get out of your neighborhood was either to go up Cole, where they would have had to go past you to get onto Fry, or to go south to Pecos Road
Correct.
through this neighborhood.
Yes.
We're going to do Amita.
Members of the jury, we're going to recess. We're going to resume at 1 p.m. Please remember the admonition. Please be in the jury room ready to go at 1 p.m.
So this should resume at 3:30 Central Time. I'm going to go ahead and leave the live running. I'm going to take myself out of it because obviously I want to go have some lunch, but I'm going to leave the live running so you guys can watch the rest of this testimony from Brandon Boudreaux. And curious to see who the next witness is as well. Maybe the 911 operator. Maybe we'll get to hear the 911 call. That'll be interesting. So thank you guys for keeping me company during this.
How much more direct on this witness?
Probably 30 to 45 minutes. We have a 911 call to play, but
Okay. Do you have an update for me on obtaining documents from your investigator?
So I can't personally communicate with him during lunch break, so I'll have them check into it. And
I guess I didn't know if advisory council or your paralegal were able to contact him via email while this was going on this morning.
You did when you asked me.
We're all waiting.
they did email him, but there's been no response yet.
All right, if anyone gets in contact with him and identifies what documents are needed, obviously if you email those to our staff, we'd be happy to print them out for you. But please let me know with any updates. Are there you have identifiable specific documents, and have you attempted to contact him on what that is that you need here this afternoon?
If I can meet with my team right after this, I'll make sure that they have a list of everything
Okay,
so that we can
all right.
do that.
Please keep us updated.
Okay.
Recess till 1 o'clock.
All right, everybody, I'm going to leave the live running, and so you guys can watch this after lunch. So take care, everybody.